Welcome back, everyone, to the Wedge 52 Gridiron Podcast. I'm your host, Wedge. Today's episode is all about the NFL. The NFL is back. NFL fans, we have made it. We finally have football on Sundays, obviously on Thursdays and Monday nights as well. But we finally have NFL football, regular season, leading into the playoffs for the next 5 to 6 months. Before we jump in today, thank you all for listening in advance. Please check out my other episodes as well as press that follow button right here on Spotify and check out the Instagram and drop a follow there. That way you guys can kind of keep up. As the season rolls in here, I will be utilizing Instagram more with some additional posts other than just the podcast episodes. So jumping into today's episode, a little rundown of what you expect throughout this episode. I'm going to start off with some news, kind of just a couple of the highlights, kind of big news since my preseason preview. And then I'm going to take a look at each game, kind of things to look for, and just kind of talk about each matchup and kind of some things to expect, some things to look for, things that caught my eye. I'm introducing the HIM Player of the Week. That will be starting, eligibility for that starts, this week with the Lions versus Chiefs game. The HIM Player of the Week is a little series I'm going to be doing. Each week, I will be naming one player, the HIM Performance of the Week. And that's basically, HIM is going to be like the best performance of the week, standout, a HIM performance. My younger folks listening, they all know what the HIM performance is. And if I have any older folks listening, ask some of the younger people what HIM and Himothy means. So look forward to that. That'll be starting, nominations for HIM Player Performance of the Week will begin Thursday during the first NFL game. And then I'll give you my predictions for each matchup, and then that'll kind of wrap up the episode. So let's jump into it first with some news. The biggest kind of news, Dalvin Cook to the Jets. Dalvin Cook, one of the premier running backs in the league, and he was a free agent for a while after Minnesota cut him. He decided to go to the New York Jets, I believe, on a 1-year, $8 million deal to further kind of stack their team. They got a lot of new pieces, a lot of big new pieces within, Cook, Aaron Rodgers, things like that. Ezekiel Elliott, another running back, not as near as premier as Dalvin Cook is anymore in his career, but solid back, definitely a fairly popular, well-known name. He signed with the New England Patriots on a 1-year deal. I'm not sure that he really swings that team, one way or the other. Definitely a nice running back for them, but they do have Ramondre Stevenson. 53-man rosters are set for all teams. The deadline for this was last week, Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys, check, who made your favorite team, things like that. A little bit of Ravens news. They did, I'm sure you have all seen by now, the Ravens did lose their preseason streak in Washington. I was at the game, unfortunately, but then they also lost week 3 in the preseason to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, to me, it is what it is. It doesn't really matter. What I'm happy about is the Ravens came out pretty much healthy, to my knowledge, as well as, I'm hoping that those 2 preseason losses turn into 2 postseason wins, and then we kind of mess around and then figure out what happens in that AFC Championship game, try and make a run. The Commanders, that was really like their Super Bowl for the year. That's how Commanders fans are acting. It's how the Commanders were playing, really. Their number 1 wide receiver, Terry McLaurin, he played the entire first half, went down late in the second quarter with a foot injury that was later diagnosed as turf toe, and he is now questionable and he's most likely going to miss this week and potentially week 2 as well. So, good for the Commanders, though. It's definitely worth it right there. As well as Kyle Rudolph, a longtime Minnesota Vikings tight end, signed a one-day deal with the Minnesota Vikings and retired after 12 years in the NFL. So that kind of wraps up the major news, as well as, the Jonathan Taylor saga that's going on. But I'll talk about that a little bit more in the Colts section here. So now, just some chatter about each game this week, kind of what to expect, and kind of my thoughts and, what you need to know heading into week 1. Starting off with the Thursday night football game, Lions at the Chiefs. Chris Jones, rumor has it, there is an offer on the table. Chris Jones has not signed it, and Chris Jones has, been, very vocal in saying that he's willing to wait out, the maximum time, I believe is till week 8 or something like that, and eat the fines, which to me doesn't really make sense. If he waits all the way till mid-season, he'll be losing $8 million. I mean, is he really going to be making $8 million more per year? Like, at some point, you just got to trade it in, take what you can get. And all of this, with the injury updates and, Chris Jones' contract, this is all at the time recording, which is the night prior to this episode that you're hopefully listening to, the day it released, Wednesday, or Thursday before the season kicks off. But if it's later than that and you're watching or listening, I should say, before your week 1 game kicks off, thank you very much. Kadarius Toney looks like he is a go. All signs are pointing to him playing. The Chiefs, I know, are expecting Toney to have, breakout year and kind of, fill in that void at the wide receiver 1 position, hopefully for them. Interesting news today, Travis Kelce went down earlier this morning. Again, I'm recording this the night prior to its release. Travis Kelce went down with a hyperextended knee. Initial reports, it does not look like it is a long-term or serious injury. The ACL appears to be intact, but, it happening on a Tuesday in a game on Thursday night, it's very likely that Travis Kelce does not play. Even if he's potentially able to go, the Chiefs, they might not be wanting to cram that injury turnaround in 2 days for a week 1 game. They'd much rather have him later in the season. For the Lions, they're hoping to pick up where they left off. They obviously finished the season red hot, going 8-2 in their last 10 games, including a victory over the Green Bay Packers to eliminate their playoff hopes. That was a great sight to see. And then it's going to be kind of first look at their first round pick. I should say first round Jahmyr Gibbs pick right there. And, kind of seeing what he's going to be able to do. I do expect him to be utilized rushing and as a receiving threat. And it's going to be, it's a good test to see what the Lions are really going to be made out of this season. Even if they don't win this game, I still think that it's going to be a very good indication of where they stand. So next game is, of course, going to be the Texans at the Ravens. C.J. Stroud will be starting for the Houston Texans this weekend. Not really much else to discuss on the Texans, but C.J. Stroud starting, and then Ravens' new look offense going to be the first time we get to really see it fully unleashed, or, at least start to be fully unleashed. You don't want to show all your cards week 1, yada, yada. But it is definitely exciting to see what this offense can do under Monken with a freshly signed Lamar Jackson, Odell Beckham Jr., drafted rookie Zay Flowers, who's been amazing throughout camp and preseason from all accounts, healthy Rashad Bateman, hopefully, and Mark Andrews, who, second best tight end in the league. He's been there. He's been putting up numbers. Exciting to see what he's going to do, when there's actually some coverage going towards other guys. He is dealing with some sort of a little injury, but Harbaugh says that it's nothing to be concerned about. So we'll see how that develops. I'm thinking that Mark Andrews will play this weekend. Panthers versus at the Atlanta Falcons this week. Brian Burns, Panthers defensive end, is looking like he's going to sit out because of contract disputes. He feels that he should be getting paid more. And to all accounts at the moment, it's looking like he's willing to sit out this week one, to kind of show his value to the team. Bryce Young, rookie quarterback, number 1 overall pick, is starting week 1 as well. He'll be starting. Be interesting to see how him and Stroud both perform, being the top 2 picks in the draft, as well as kind of the Panthers' new offensive weapons that they have, and seeing how much they can help out Young in Miles Sanders and Adam Thielen. The Atlanta Falcons, Desmond Ridder is slated to start this week. I think it's probably the good choice for them, but I would expect him to be on a semi-short leash this year with the signing of Taylor Heineke. And it should definitely be fun to watch Bijan Robinson. We know he's capable. He's going to be dual threat option. It's pretty much just him and Drake London on that offense. And hopefully, shout out Scotty Miller, Barrington High School. Hopefully he steps it up, kind of gets back to those big play days like he had in Tampa Bay. Moving on to the Bengals at Browns. Joe Burrow is dealing with that calf strain that he had, early in training camp. It's looking like right now it's looking good. It's looking like Joe Burrow at the time of recording. It's trending well for him to play in the week 1 matchup, but the calf is a very sensitive muscle, and it will definitely be the epitome of day-to-day with him. If he is unable to go, the Bengals have quarterbacks Jake Browning and recently signed Will Grier. So one of them two will get to start, most likely Browning. Over on the Browns side, they're hoping that Deshaun Watson can kind of turn things around, and be worth some of that money that they, forked out in the fully guaranteed deal for Deshaun Watson. Moving down to the 49ers at Pittsburgh Steelers. Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa is holding out currently for the contract. It is not looking like he's going to be playing unless they get a deal done quick, within the next couple of days here. And then he may potentially get some snaps in on Sunday. It's going to be a question of Brock Purdy's health. He had that UCL surgery, after the playoffs last year. And, he's looking solid, but he's definitely still, that elbow definitely looks tender still. So it's going to be interesting to see, how far or how capable he is of pushing the ball downfield, and kind of, if that offense is a little more run heavy and short throw game planned this week for the 49ers offense. The Steelers are kind of looking to prove something for themselves. They've been getting a lot of hype that I don't see how it's there. That could be me as a Ravens fan, but I just don't think. I think they'll be a decent team, but in the stacked AFC, I just don't think they have what it takes to be, in that playoff conversation. Kenny Pickett entering his second year here. They're hoping to see the end of the season Kenny Pickett, and not the Kenny Pickett that, they kind of witnessed the first part of the year. Heading over to the Cardinals at Commanders game. Sam Howell should be, he is starting. Sam Howell should be solid for them. He definitely looked decent in preseason. I think that his performance is really going to dictate how the Commanders team is this year. They will be playing, like I said, most likely without their number one receiver, probably number one player on their offense, in Scary Terry McLaurin with that foot injury. Terry says he wants to play, but I'm sure that the staff is a little more conservative on his health than his desire to play. As well as the Arizona Cardinals, that's really just the biggest question mark to me in this offseason. Kyler Murray's on the PUP list. They released Colt McCoy. I think it's going to be Clayton Tune and Joshua Dobbs is their only quarterbacks. I would guess Dobbs is going to start. I really don't know. I haven't looked into that situation too much. And then they traded Budda Baker, who that was some other surprising news. They traded him to the New York Giants for a 7th rounder. To me, that's disrespectful to Budda Baker. I would say he's one of the better safeties in the league. And, a 7th rounder is like you didn't even try. Like, I feel like Budda's worth at least a 3rd and a 4th. 7th rounder, there should have been 31 teams in the league offering a 7th rounder to him. So, again, I don't know what the Cardinals are doing. Heading to the Buccaneers at Vikings game. It's going to be the return of Jay Jets. Not return like he was gone from something, but just the return of us being able to witness the spectacular plays and athleticism that Justin Jefferson brings to the NFL. And then, for the Minnesota Vikings, like I mentioned earlier, Dalvin Cook is no longer there. So it's going to be the Alexander Mattison show. It's going to be time to see if, he's not going to be Dalvin Cook, I don't think. But they're going to see if, Alexander Mattison is enough of a guy to, solidify or maintain their rushing game, their ground game. For the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield is set to start. He won that quarterback battle early in preseason against Kyle Trask, former former Florida quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong there. And then, another situation down in Tampa Bay is the whole Mike Evans situation that's been unfolding the past couple of days. He wants a long-term contract or, some sort of contract extension that, shows that the Buccaneers appreciate him and all he's done for them the past few years. To this moment, there's no deal, in place. I have seen 1 or 2 reports that are saying the offer's on the table, but at the time of recording, Mike Evans hasn't signed it. Mike Evans and his agent publicly set a deadline for contract negotiations at September 9th, the Saturday right before their first game. So we will see together if that deal gets done between Tampa Bay and Mike Evans. Otherwise, he is set to become a free agent after this 2023 season. The Jaguars and the Colts, Calvin Ridley's expected to return here for the Jaguars. He hasn't played a full season since 2020. In 2021, he played 5 games and then got injured. And then 2022, he was suspended for the whole season due to gambling violations. So it's, there's been a lot of hype around him. And, it's time for him to decide or for him to show, if it was worth it. On the Colts side of the game, Anthony Richardson also expected to start number 4 overall draft pick in this April draft here. And then Jonathan Taylor will not be playing. He was placed on the physically unable to perform list, meaning he will miss at least 4 weeks to start the season with an injury. That whole situation, that one between Taylor and the owner of the Colts has been it's been interesting to watch, let's just say, with the owner's public comments and Jonathan Taylor, of course, being one of the premier backs in the league. It's just interesting. The owner is not even pretending to care about his player, in my opinion. So, moving on to that Titans at Saints game. Derek Carr will be making a start for his new team over there for the Saints. And then I'm looking for, hopefully, Chris Olave to continue the nice production that he had as a rookie. It should definitely help with more of a gunslinger-style quarterback in Derek Carr. Derek Carr might turn the ball over, a little more often than you'd like, but that's what happens with the quarterback like Derek Carr, who likes to push the ball down the field, which could, help benefit Chris Olave if he's able to get behind the defense. And they also have a couple other weapons. Rookie wide receiver A.T. Perry, I believe, could sneak up that depth chart. And then Alvin Kamara is going to be suspended for his altercation in Vegas at the Pro Bowl. But the Saints did sign league-leading rushing touchdowns for last season, Jamal Williams. They signed him this year. So they should be in a decent position there. And then for the Tennessee Titans, looks like Ryan Tannehill will be starting. They have an interesting quarterback room there. They obviously have Tannehill, the vet, a little bit older, probably been average to slightly above average with the Titans and during his career. And then they have Malik Willis, who they drafted last year. And then they also traded up for Will Levis in this past draft back in April. Definitely a interesting quarterback room, and it'll be interesting to see how that situation develops throughout the year and see what kind of a leash or what kind of a system they're running there with Tannehill. But Derrick Henry, best running back in the league, he will be there starting, obviously, as well as it'll be the introduction for DeAndre Hopkins as a Tennessee Titan. And we'll kind of see, what DeAndre Hopkins has left in the tank over in Tennessee. Moving on to the Raiders at Broncos game. They have new quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. So for the Raiders there, be interesting to see what he can kind of, bring to that offense that Derek Carr couldn't. I really don't think that there's much of a difference in terms of, wins credited towards the quarterback versus Garoppolo and Carr there. Josh Jacobs came to an agreement with the Raiders on a one-year deal. He was also having contract disputes, but him and the Raiders decided on a deal, and so he's a go. He's one of the premier top 5 running backs in the league, as well as Devontae Adams. That is a very good duo right there with the Raiders, Jacobs and Adams. So that'd be interesting to see how they kick off the season. And then for the Broncos, it's kind of a big year for them, to improve on last year's, kind of very poor performance, at least in terms of the expectations that were around that Russell Wilson trade. And so it's really big year for Russell Wilson to try and get back to, what he's been known for his career. And he's going to be doing that with the new offense, and the new head coach, Sean Payton. So Payton's obviously had a lot of success coaching, a lot of success with, his kind of offensive strategies with Drew Brees in New Orleans. Wide receiver Jerry Jeudy, who had the best year of his career last year, is dealing with a hamstring injury, and it is not looking good for him to be active week 1, but we'll see how that develops. Of course, that is, at the time of this recording. For the Dolphins and Chargers game, I'm predicting that this could potentially be the highest scoring game of the week between these two. Tua is back. He's obviously had a lot of head injuries and a lot of, chatter around his head last season and then into this offseason. He did some training. He should be good. He should be fully healthy right now. To me, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of happens if he does take a shot to the head, and kind of how he responds, and what goes on with that. That'll kind of really be the test of his health there. For the LA Chargers, Bosa and Mack, they are hoping to both be ready, be 100% full season for them. It's one of probably the better pass rushing duos in the league, where last year they didn't really get to play together at all. So they should hopefully be able to provide a lot of pressure on that Miami Dolphins offensive line, who struggled very mightily last season, and made a lot of moves on the Miami Dolphins offensive line, but not really any moves that solve an issue. It's kind of a lot of moving a mid-level for a mid-level. Nothing really tipped that scale. And then Austin Eckler, there's been a lot of talk between him and his contract, and him wanting or feeling like he should be worth more. But it's looking like him and the Chargers, they're squared away. I forget, their exact terms or how it went down with that, but he looks ready to go. He'll be playing. We obviously know he's a good dual threat with Justin Herbert at quarterback. And then Keenan Allen and Mike Williams should both be healthy here to start the season, as well as their first-round draft pick, Quentin Johnson out of TCU. For the Rams at Seahawks game, Matthew Stafford should be back. Hopefully he stays healthy. The Rams had quite a disappointing season last year, especially after he went down, after Kupp went down. Speaking of Cooper Kupp, it's at the time of recording here. It does not look like Cooper Kupp is going to be active for week 1, but it's not completely ruled out. He is being listed as day-to-day, but that's another kind of player where I feel like the team would rather him miss a game or two now, rather than potentially sacrificing his health throughout the whole season. For the Seattle Seahawks, it'll be potentially, I guess, the first look at their improved offense. It was already very good offense, but they definitely used up some draft stock on it by drafting Jackson Smith-Njigba out of Ohio State. But at the moment, his stuff looks very day-to-day. From what I've seen, there is very few reports on his status. He has been practicing this week so far, but it is in a heavily braced wrist. He had a wrist injury after his touchdown in week 2, I believe, preseason. But they also drafted UCLA running back Charbonnet, who looks decent, but they obviously had Kenneth Walker, who put up incredible numbers last year as a rookie. So I'm hoping that Kenneth Walker maintains his role. But if Walker gets banged up and Charbonnet steps in, I do not think that's the worst thing for the Seahawks, in terms of a drop-off. It'll be interesting to see if Geno Smith can continue his success that he had last year. And we're going to start to see that, on Sunday here. And then over for the Eagles and the Patriots game, all I have to say for this one is, I guess Mac Jones is the Patriots guy. They dropped Zappi and Cunningham, who I think they signed both of them back to the practice squad, and potentially, they got moved up. I don't really have much else to say on this game. The Eagles are defending NFC champs. I would expect the Eagles to win by a good margin. And then the Packers at the Bears. It's Jordan Love's time to prove it to the world, prove to his franchise what he's capable of. I don't quite see it in terms of him being very good. I would say a realistic expectation for Packers and Packers fans is for Jordan Love to be average and be a good enough game manager to put their team, specifically that defense or their running backs, in position to help them win ball games. For the Chicago Bears, another thing with the Packers I'm hoping to see is Lucas Van Ness. kneeling over Justin Fields after getting a sack. Good luck this weekend, Lucas. Once again, shout out Barrington High School. For the Bears, though, Fields will be working with his new weapons. We'll see if the Bears decide to throw the ball more. They have, not been a pass-heavy team in terms of production for the past couple of years. They have new weapons in DJ Moore, as well as some new protection for Justin Fields with offensive tackle Darnell Wright, who can hopefully protect Fields better than he was last year, where Fields got sacked 55 times. But then they also have Chase Claypool, who got traded to the Bears mid-season last year, and Darnell Mooney, who has looked good and shown a lot of flashes of talent. So we'll see what their kind of production is for the Chicago Bears. We're almost wrapping up here with the games, the chatter of each game this week. We're heading into the Sunday Night Football matchup between the Cowboys at the New York Giants. For the Dallas Cowboys, they're hoping that Dak Prescott can keep the turnovers down. Last year, he led the league in interceptions. He's been talking a big game, saying he's going to have less than 5 this year. So we're about to see if he starts out that promise or goal on a good trend or not. I'm looking for CeeDee Lamb to continue improving over the past 3 years of his career, or I should say past 2. He's been in the league for 3 years. Every year, though, his numbers have gone up in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. So I'm definitely keeping my eye on CeeDee Lamb this year and have high expectations for him to continue that trend. It's definitely going to be Tony Pollard's time to shine as running back 1. He's probably claimed that role last season, with Zeke still there even. But now it is his show. No more Zeke to be, kind of looking over his shoulder or to be, making sure that Pollard is still performing well. For the New York Giants, they have the new contracts of quarterback Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, who are hopefully both happy and hopefully for the Giants fans continue the production that they saw out of them last year, as well as they have rookie wide receiver Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee, who has been looking nice in training camp and preseason, and has kind of produced quite a bit of good media for himself. Nothing quite like Zay Flowers, but Jalen Hyatt I expect to finally be a decent receiving weapon for the New York Giants, who also acquired Darren Waller this offseason. Moving on to the last game of the weekend, the Monday Night Football, Bills at the New York Jets. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers' first game as the New York Jets. It's going to be interesting to see if the young Jets team, a lot of young stars, if they can kind of keep up their production that they had last year. They're definitely in a tough division, a tough Week 1 opponent, and a tough AFC conference. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Jets look with a quarterback, that's a whole lot better than the quarterbacks they were playing with last year. And then for the Buffalo Bills, edge rusher Von Miller is starting the season on that physically unable to perform list, so he will miss at least 4 weeks. And the Bills are hoping that rookie draft pick Dalton Kincaid can kind of boost up that offense, kind of take some of the coverage off of Stephon Diggs and open up that offense even more, as well as kind of have a reliable outlet for Josh Allen when Diggs and the other receivers are covered. So that's all the chatter I have and notes, things to look for, keep an eye out for each game this week, and which leaves me with making my predictions for each game. I'll be keeping track of my predictions each week and be updating you on my record throughout the season. If you guys have made it this far, thank you so much for listening. Let's run through it here with my Week 1 picks. Lions at Chiefs, I'm taking the Lions. Texans at Ravens, I'm taking the Ravens. Panthers at Falcons, I'm taking the Falcons. Bengals at Browns, I'm taking the Bengals. 49ers at Steelers, I'm taking the 49ers. Cardinals at Commanders, I'm taking the Commanders. Bucks at Vikings, I'm taking the Vikings. Jags at Colts, I'm taking the Jaguars. Titans at Saints, I'm taking the Saints. Raiders at Broncos, I'm taking the Broncos. Dolphins at Chargers, I'm taking the Chargers. Rams at Seahawks, I'm taking the Seahawks. Eagles at Patriots, I'm taking the Eagles. Packers at Bears, I'm taking the Bears. Cowboys at Giants, I'm taking the Cowboys. And Bills at Jets, I am taking the Bills. So those are my week 1 picks. The 2 toughest ones this week were between the Lions Chiefs and the Dolphins Chargers. I truly believe that the Lions have a very solid shot at beating the Chiefs, especially if Travis Kelce is going to be missing. Chris Jones probably is not going to be, signed and playing. The Lions have a very good top 5 offensive line probably with new running back Jahmyr Gibbs. It's looking good for the Lions. I'd rather pick the Lions and be wrong than pick the Chiefs and be regretting it. So that's my little discussion on that one. And then Dolphins at Chargers. I think it's going to be high scoring. If it turns into high scoring, I think the Chargers defense is just a little bit better. I think that pressure from Bosa and Mack will hopefully start to get to Tua in that second half. So those are my picks for week 1. Thank you all for listening. As always, remember to press that follow button right here on Spotify so you can stay up to date with all of my episodes that I'll be dropping. As well as please check out my Instagram. I'll be posting more there as the season gets underway with the HIM Performance of the Weeks, which I'll also discuss in the podcast episode. But there'll be a post there, as well as some content for my Ravens fans throughout the week. Thank you all for listening. Go Ravens.